Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. This is Chuck Davis speaking from Adaptive Solutions. I'd like to welcome you to our legal community town hall. We have a great session today, and I want to share with you that it's very well received. We have a lot of attendees coming in. We received over 100 responses from people to join today's session, and I want to let you know that we're hoping to make this very interactive. We're hoping to make it educational. And our real goal is to share with you some of the information that our panelists have dealt with, much of the same of what you may be dealing with, but maybe some creative ideas and just give back a little bit to our community. We're all going through a very, very tough time, and I think we all need a little bit of social interaction over lunch. So hopefully everybody has something to eat, and we're going to go ahead and get started. I will let you know that for housekeeping, the session is being recorded today, and we will be publishing it to our social media channels, I believe through our YouTube stream. So if you have to leave, or if someone in your organization couldn't attend and would find it beneficial, we will make that available to you after the session. So what I'm gonna do, and your lines are muted, by the way, I should mention that to you as well as attendees. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up the introductions to our panelists. We have 5 good friends and customers with us today that are gonna share their experiences from a different background. We have 2 people that are in the corporate legal side, and we have a few people that are on the law firm side. So what we're going to do is try and share with you what their experiences have been with COVID-19 and how they've responded. And without further ado, I'm going to go in alphabetical order and ask Adeline Williams to say hello and give you a little bit about a background from herself. Adeline?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Adeline Williams. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Kaplan Stewart. We are a commercial firm in Blue Bell, Pennsylvania with 3 offices, and we have about 80 users.
Sounds good. And next would be John Brooks. John, would you please say hello?
Hi, everybody. How you doing today? I'm John Brooks, the IT Director at Potter Anderson & Caroon. We're located in Wilmington, Delaware. We have about 150 users in our firm, 1 primary office location with a small satellite in Dover. So hopefully I can help you today and answer some questions.
Super, thank you, John. Next up is Lawrence Baxter. Lawrence, will you please say hello? Oh, Lawrence, I don't know.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lawrence Baxter. I'm the CTO for Sherman & Sterling. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was saying I'm Lawrence Baxter. I'm the CTO at Sherman & Sterling based in New York. Sherman & Sterling is a 148-year-old global law firm, 24 offices around the world, about 1,800 people. And I'm based in New York, but the team is spread across all the geographies.
Super, thank you, Lawrence. Next is Maria Dunn. Maria, I'll let you say hello.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maria Dunn. I am a process manager in the law department of Allegheny Technologies, otherwise known as ATI. We are a specialty metals manufacturing company, and we have a corporate office that's somewhere around 100 folks, but our law department is really around 15 to 17 people. So we're a small group.
Thank you, Maria. And last but not least, the man behind the curtain, our Wizard of Oz today, whose camera was not cooperating, is Reese Aerosmith. Reese, I'll let you say hello.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Reese Aerosmith here. I'm the head of legal operations for the Campbell Soup Company. I'm sitting in Philadelphia. Our headquarters are in Camden, New Jersey. We have about 50 people within the legal department globally.
Sounds good. And Reese promised Swedish, the Pepperidge Farm fishes and chicken noodle soup, right, Reese? And this is done for everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. We're hosting virtual lunch. Hopefully you all have a can in your cabinet.
That'll be great. I thought we'd do something a little fun before we jump into something that's a little more serious, maybe a little bit of an icebreaker. What I was going to do was go back around the room in the same order, starting with Adeline. And Adeline, just ask you, when you're not working, and I know that's not very, it's very rare that you're not working, what you're doing to get past your self-quarantine time. What is your guilty pleasure?
Zoom workouts in the morning and a Zoom dance class 1 night a week, and then on the weekends, planting flowers in my yard.
Well, you're no stranger to the camera then, right? You've been using these computers for a while.
Right.
John, I know that you're going to grow your beard until the quarantine's over, but what are you doing in your spare time?
Yes, I am. I'm going to have a hockey beard. There's no doubt about it. The other thing I'm doing now is also going to be, have the nicest yard in the neighborhood and the cleanest car in the garage.
I like those lines. Lawrence, how about yourself? What are you doing to pass some spare time?
Well, there's a British mini-series called Peaky Blinders. If you haven't seen Peaky Blinders, I'd recommend it. I think Tom Hardy is the next Anthony Hopkins. So if you haven't seen Peaky Blinders, I've been binging on that.
We'll add that one to my watch list. Maria, next up, please.
So I've been keeping my sanity by actually running trails. I really enjoy hiking, and I've just taken it to a new level by starting to run, which is good to get out of the house and get some fresh air. And also, I think that we would probably share this. I've been binge watching Ozark on Netflix. So
Oh, that's my guilty pleasure. Yes, I love Ozark. Did you see the ending yet?
I did, yes.
I'm not going to blow it for those that are watching the call. We don't want to do a spoiler, but it's very good. If you're watching Ozark, you need to watch the last 2 episodes. That's what it's all about.
Yes.
Super. And Reese, last but not least, how about you? What are you doing in your spare time?
Yeah, like Maria, I have been spending a bit of time outdoors, went on a couple of hikes in the last week in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. I'm really glad you didn't spoil Ozarks for me. I am only a couple episodes in, and this week I'm also mourning the end of Schitt's Creek for anyone who is watching that show.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, very sad it's over.
Yeah, if you went back and watched Back to the Future years ago, I think in one of the episodes you see Marty come home and he says, stream this channel, stream that channel. That was Netflix 25 years ago, right? They had that right. They had gasoline prices wrong. So with that, I'm going to jump in. We've got about an hour, about 50 minutes left over. What we're going to do is go through some interactive Q&A with our panel, talk a little bit about some issues that we've been dealing with, get some feedback. And at the end, we're going to try and save about 10 minutes for some dialogue with the attendees through the questions panel inside of GoToWebinar. So we'll remind you guys of that at the end. So if we talk about something, or I should say, don't bring something up that is important to you, please save the question at the end and let us know. And if we don't get to it during the session, you can feel free to email it into Adaptive, and we'd be happy to talk to our panel and share those experiences and feedbacks with you. But we'll do our best to get to the questions at the end. So question number one, John, I'm going to direct to you as an IT director. I know you're pretty technical and you're a hands-on guy. So given the pandemic, it's obviously changing the way that law firms have to operate from a technology standpoint. In speaking to a lot of people in the industry over the last couple of weeks, it seems like one of the biggest challenges that legal people have struggled with was scale for remote access. There's a lot of businesses that weren't built to have more than a fraction of their workforce work from home. As you made that change and moved over to work from home methodologies, can you share with the group what was your biggest challenges and maybe how you and your technical team overcame some of those challenges?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Some of the things we did in the very beginning was, first of all, prior to all this, actually, we did an audit of our environment and how things were running, looking at our bandwidth in particular to see that we had enough bandwidth and enough scalability in our platforms to support it. So recently we deployed Windows 10 and we went from desktops to laptops, which was a huge advantage. And we trained everybody on utilization of how to connect via VPN, which was a pretty big deal. So that worked out very well for us. In addition, we also have a remote desktop server, RDS, running in our environment as a second method of connectivity for people. And we made sure we had the appropriate licensing. Our two-factor authentication, our MDM solutions goes to our mobile devices, and also RDS as well. So these are things that we did, and we also did some load testing on our bandwidth to ensure that we had sufficient bandwidth and monitoring that to make sure we had enough there. So we're very fortunate in that we did upgrade. We made sure we have some redundancy. We make sure we do failover testing as well for our primary circuit and our secondary circuits. So things like that are probably the biggest things to ensure that we're able to scale up and support people. So it worked out really good for us in this respect. Our transition has gone very smoothly, and our executive committee has been very happy as a result as well. So that's always a positive.
Have you had to walk any lawyers out of the office that refused to go home?
We still have a few I've had conversations with a couple. It's pretty funny that said, I've worked this way for 35 years and I can't change. So, you know, it's always a battle, but, you know, we got them through, and, you know, we did some interesting things to help people. So the instructions are available to them in an offline mode when they're using firm laptops. Probably the biggest thing that we did was we put in what's called an instructions folder on the desktop. So everything is available to them, whether they're online or offline. and they can follow these step-by-step instructions with videos and pictures and all that good stuff. So it's paint by numbers makes a big difference.
So it sounds like you guys were early. It sounds like, I won't use the language that you were built for this, but you were planning for something like this in the future. Your systems were maybe better prepared than some organizations were.
I think so, Chuck, yes. You know, my previous experience at my other law firms where I've worked, you know, you take lessons learned from each one. And I think it's been beneficial for me in particular to be able to go from one firm to another and get a little lessons learned from each. So
maybe a broader question to the group as a whole. Are we finding that most people are working through VPN? Are they using laptops? Are people relying on remote desktop services like Citrix or VDI? Or do you see people more directly connected in your environments to the systems?
So for Kaplan Stewart, the paralegals and attorneys are utilizing VPN and the staff is using remote desktop.
same here.
And it really balances the load by splitting it, and thankfully no issues, and everybody's been productive. But we also last year really assessed our bandwidth and really ramped our infrastructure up.
That sounds great. Anybody else have a comment on that one, or are we good on that question? All right, sounds like we're good. So number two, I'm going to pitch over to Lawrence. Lawrence, you're kind of a little bit unique in the group. As you mentioned, you're in a much larger firm. Sherman has offices in the Americas, in Europe, and in Asia. Could you maybe share, you know, when you guys started planning for COVID-19? Did the fact that you have a presence overseas allow you to respond a little bit sooner? And if you did, what did your early planning look like? And do you think that helped you guys to position better for this?
Yeah, I think, did it help in the comfortable perspective of hindsight? Yes, absolutely. I happened to be in Hong Kong in early January, and you could see and feel it then. It was definitely getting far more press. So coming back from Asia in mid to late January, we started to put the plan together, and the planning fell into roughly two buckets. So from a firm perspective, you know, clearly the focus was on the health and well-being of our people. So a task force was built, and it was all about evaluating the correct courses of action, communicating, you know, what we know, what we don't know, what we are doing, what you should do, you know, how and what you should communicate to your clients. And I think we did, in hindsight, some things we got right, some things we got wrong. I don't think you can ever over communicate. So I think we did well in communicating around the world about everything that we knew with, you know, with a clear dose of reality and being factual and not trying to instill any kind of fear, but being honest. And then from a tech perspective, I think what we did is we thought about putting all of our people into different kind of personas. So thinking that we're going to have to work remotely, what does that mean to an LAA? What does it mean to a partner? If you're in the finance department, how are you going to do your job from your house? And I think that helped a lot, because then you could think about what they're going to go through on a day-to-day basis. We made sure that our BCP was understood by everyone that needed to understand it. We checked with the help desk whether they were going to be able to deal with the deluge of our people that had not worked from home before. So we had 400 people that were not used to working from home out of the 1,800. And so we staggered that because we had an early warning so that they didn't overwhelm the help desk all at one time. Similar to John, we made sure we had enough licensing, enough bandwidth in our primary and our secondary data centers and our cold site. We also looked at what client events were coming down the line so that we could consider doing them in a different way. And then, you know, how are we going to communicate to all of our users, worst case scenario, if we face the apocalypse? So I think, to answer your question, the staggered way in which this moved from east to west was a blessing in disguise. And if you asked the question, if it was all in one day, would we have been so successful? I think the answer would have been absolutely not. So we learned quite a few lessons and dodged a few bullets, and that will inform what we do next time.
That was my follow-up, and I think that sounds like it's probably the most important takeaway, is being ready for next time, because we just don't know, given the situation that we're in, if we're going to go back through this again, or how long the lockdown may continue to last. Anybody else on the panel want to add anything more about early planning and what you guys may have done differently in your firms or law departments?
We followed the same thing as Lawrence. Even though we had one office, we actually rolled people over the period of 2 days. So we did not inundate our help desk with support calls. So it was basically a Monday and a Tuesday. We told half the firm to stay at home on Monday, and then everybody else was required to be out on Tuesday. So it worked out very well for us, and from a supportability perspective.
It's good. I know there were a lot of meetings, John, when you and I were talking. Your firm was huddling and strategizing as early as they could, and it was great that the businesses took this as serious as it was, and looked out for the welfare and the health of their staff and their workers, which is great.
Yes.
All right. So, Rhys, I'm going to go with you on number 3 for this question, and it kind of ties in a little bit into the interaction between corporate legal and law firms. So COVID-19 obviously has made a significant impact on business in general, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the collaborative approach that we see between in-house counsel and law firms. How has that changed for Campbell's? And have you, as the Director of Operations, implemented any new processes or technologies that are helping to bridge those gaps during these changing times?
Yeah, sure. So, it's certainly very interesting times for all of us to be living through. Luckily, law firms and corporate legal departments are used to working remotely and collaborating via the internet, really largely driven by email. For the most part, we didn't see a huge disruption in the way we were working. One of my biggest concerns immediately upon contemplating a work from home legal community was data security. And I was really worried about, I wasn't sure what our firms would be capable of and how quickly they would be. To some of the points that have come up, I didn't know who had laptops, who had desktops, if people were going to be trying to work on their home computers. Luckily, Chuck, as you know, we had deployed our document management system with iManage Share several years ago. So we were prepared with a cloud-based document management system. Because I was worried about security, immediately upon kind of contemplating a work from home, we really pushed the department and educated the department again, kind of on iManage Share, which gives you the ability to attach a document to an email, but what is actually sent to the recipient, the third party, is a link to go and access the document from a secure location in the cloud. So we kind of pushed the internal department to use iManage Share. We had been using it in pockets. There were a few people who had adopted it for really kind of communicating with critical sensitive documents attached. So we kind of focused on that and got everybody focused on and kind of aware of iManage Share and pushed them to use that. The second item that I was worried about was very similar but related to discovery and our doc review. And we immediately, luckily, we don't have a lot of third parties that we use for doc review. So we reached out to our law firms and our doc review partners just to have a thoughtful conversation with them on what they were doing to ensure the security of our documents. We did find out that a few of those companies had planned on having their employees use home computers, and we worked with either moving the matters to other individuals, other companies, or worked with them to really pause the work, get them secure laptops. So there was, there was definitely some coordination with different vendors at different levels. Luckily, internally, we had, we really rely on our matter management system, which is in the cloud, and our document management system, which is of course in the cloud, as I mentioned. So it was, other than security, it's really been fairly seamless. I think we've been in a good spot.
So fair to say, leveraging a lot of those investments and technologies that you put in prior that really came back to help in these difficult times.
Absolutely. Yep.
Maria, I'm going to ask you, since you're on the corporate legal side too, similar at Allegheny, or maybe something a little bit different?
Almost exact, actually. I haven't been as involved with the security aspect of it, but definitely very similar to Rhys, where We have a lot of our applications, our document management system, our matter management system in the cloud, and we've made sure that folks are able to access what they need to, working from home. But yeah, definitely a lot of similar things to Reese.
That sounds great. Glad to see that the time we took to make those projects happen came back to help your businesses, which is wonderful news.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to jump over to Adeline. Adeline, this has been one of my worries for a while with work from home, and I know that you're an expert at managing process and people and technology. But we've had attorneys that have worked from home for years. Some of them do it better than others, but not typically your support staff. So I was hoping maybe you could share with us a little bit of how you're distributing the workload to your support staff, how you're managing them, making sure that your secretaries and team are remaining effective. You have that exempt versus non-exempt aspect there. Was hoping maybe you could share a little bit of what your firm did at Kaplan Stewart.
Certainly. So early on, we took a survey of who had what equipment, and then we deployed equipment for those that didn't have their own laptops to get onto remote desktop. We deployed monitors. We actually had a few people that did not have internet access, so we were able to give them jetpacks. And then we offered training sessions every single day, multiple times a day, the last week that we were able to work in the office for people to get trained and comfortable, so that day one we were ready to go. And after everybody was trained, I think it comes down to logistics and communication. So we are spending more time communicating with the staff, in that each morning we have a staff meeting and we cover the workload for the day, and we break it up into segments: the accounting department, firm administration, legal admins. And then if we need to break those out further by department practice areas, we will. So each morning we do that as a full group, and then the timekeepers and their assigned admin have a call daily based on their schedule to go over with the workload. So communication's been key. We're moving work around from one to the other. They all understand we're in this to save our lives, but to save our jobs long term. So if you have excess work, you flip it over to somebody else. It benefits everybody. And then logistics for us has been key. So I have a ground crew that goes to the office. There's only 2 people on the ground crew. You submit a request by 9:30 a.m. if you need supplies or files or whatever it is you need. Then you drive up to a drive-through between 11 and 12. You open your trunk, and the ground crew puts your materials in. When it's time to return items, you put it in an envelope, you mark where it goes, and the ground crew picks it up and puts it in the office. So we're keeping people out of the office every day, but getting them what they need if they need a particular file or materials. So without proper logistics or communications, we would be dead in the water. But as of now, briefs are getting filed, filings are happening, land use night meetings are happening via Zoom. So we're moving along.
You literally have a drive-through process going through.
We have the Kaplan Stewart drive-through. And it's Monday through Friday, an hour. And then on weekends, when it's billing, we do 2 billing weeks, 2 billing cycles a month. So we have drive-through for billing so that the billers aren't on site the same time as the ground crew.
Super. We can order a cheeseburger and a milkshake while we're there, and you'll deliver that as well. And it's a limited staff, so you're still maintaining social distancing and all of the safety standards that you have to do. Nobody's rolling down their windows. I'm assuming it's a touchless effort, right?
It's a touchless effort, yes.
It's amazing. How about the secretaries when they're working from home? Are the attorneys still dictating to them for transcription, or how do they generate their work product?
So most of our attorneys draft their documents and then send them to the admins, but for those that still utilize dictation, we rolled out SpeakWrite, which is a service and they charge you per word, and they get back to you in draft in 4 hours, and then our admins can finalize it.
And is that something you deployed just for this initiative? It didn't exist before, or was it there before?
No, it was just for this initiative.
And just to make sure I heard that right, you said it was SpeakWrite was the technology?
SpeakWrite, and it's a fee per word, and you get the draft within 4 hours. You can, if you have particular letterhead or formats for documents, you can upload those documents on the portal so that the person who's typing it can pull down your format, or you can just do everything in draft, which is what we're primarily doing. And then it goes to the admin to finalize it. And it really has worked out well for anybody that still needs to dictate. We do have a couple of people that still dictate.
It's a great tip. Anybody else on the panel operating a drive-through or doing something similar to a touchless drop-off for more of the operations, or work that can't be performed remotely? Is that common?
We are actually, Chuck. We're doing the same thing as Adeline, where bills need to be paid, and we have some people that will still want that piece of paper to go through and look at their bills. So they drive up, they open their trunk, we throw them in there, and off they go. So we've actually given them some instructions as well on the utilization of technology to take a picture. How can they take a picture of these bills and submit them back in as a PDF? So fortunately, the iPhone is the majority of our platform. So with Notes, you have that ability to create a PDF with a picture. Microsoft Lens is another good tool that we've told people to use and given them instructions and trained them on how to use it. So these two little tools have really helped our billing process as well for people to get them to go more electronic than the old paper way.
That's been great. I'm going to switch over to Maria, and we may have stolen a little bit of your thunder, Maria, on this topic earlier, but I wanted to give you room if you wanted to expand. But I think we talked about the concept of moving legal departments to the cloud, but maybe you can go a little bit deeper about how it's circumvented some of your work from home challenges.
Yeah, I think a couple of years ago when we worked with you to implement iManage in the cloud, or at least I had no idea that we were actually going to be planning for a pandemic, but that has been really beneficial to us. The fact that we have pretty much every system within the law department that we would need to work remotely in the cloud. So we have our document management system, we have our matter management and e-billing platform, which is also cloud-based. And at the corporate office level, we've recently started moving over to Microsoft Teams, which I'll talk a little bit about later, has been a godsend for most of us in staying connected remotely. So the fact that, this all came on pretty suddenly, I think having all of our systems in the cloud has allowed us to be more efficient and not have to worry as much about folks being connected to the network and having, connectivity issues as much as well. So that's been very, very helpful.
We also believe that after this is all said and done, those holdout attorneys who were very not cloud friendly, I think are going to be looking at this through a different lens to say, this is going to help us in the future. It's amazing those early decisions you make pay dividends today for you guys.
Absolutely true.
I'm going to pivot this a little bit because you guys are all saying how we're in the cloud and we're live, and my good friend Lawrence is in the middle of a project where he's going to roll almost 2,000 people into the cloud, into the iManage cloud, I think over the summer. Lawrence, we're targeting, with the work from home and the global reach of Sherman, how are you guys thinking about tackling the change management, the deployment, and making sure that we actually can do this while people are distributed in a different way?
Well, I think the answer is carefully. So you know what we're going through, Chuck, because you're helping us do it. And we did have what we thought was a cunning plan, a cunning engagement plan that was going to work suspiciously well. That's what we thought. So then COVID-19 came along, so we took that plan, threw that out the window, and now we're on plan B. But I think it's going to be okay. I think we're taking a global and a local approach to this. So on the global side, we have a staggered coming soon reminders with a focus on all the benefits for each persona. So I think what's going to get us out of jail is we spent so much time, as you know, Chuck, doing all of the backroom work that had to be done in cleaning all our data and making sure we understood every end user out there and carefully putting them into separate personas and then building an engagement plan around each persona. So what you say to a legal assistant in San Francisco is very different to how you explain iManage to the same person in Paris. It's a different way of doing that. So we're going to leverage a series of webinars and mini e-learning videos at the global level, but that's going to be augmented at the local level. But each office has a change management and a technology champion who can have that conversation about what iManage means to them in Paris, in French, in a way that is defined for the kind of persona that they're talking to. So we are going to be leaning heavily on the local people around the world to drive the context of what the big overall plan is. And in some ways, we're thinking it may actually be easier, because now, for example, we may say, instead of your daily commute, maybe offer you a tailored lesson in how to get the most out of our managing the cloud, because we're finding people have time they didn't necessarily have before. So I think in all adversity, always there's an opportunity. It's just thinking creatively about what that is.
That's encouraging words. We've spoken to some firms that have said, hey, we're going to keep going with design or with build, but when we get to go live, we're a little bit worried. But if a big firm like Sherman can do it, using the right plan, and I think you guys had plan A, plan B, and maybe even plan C at one point. So this was being thought about for a while, correct?
We have plan A through F. We have plan F3, 1B, 2. But I think, look, we would be naive to think that there's not going to be any problems. I think the energy needs to be driven to understanding that and reacting correctly. So I think we have the machine now that can react and respond appropriately in the context of the jurisdiction when those problems come. And also there is some sympathy for us, because we are confronted by an unprecedented event. Okay, so I think, you know, we're not going to use that as an excuse, but it's going to give us some opportunity to pivot with some sympathy.
Sounds like a good strategy, and it sounds like the accolades at firm leadership that I've been hearing from you and your knowledge management team has been that this has been the best decision we've made. Let's get it done. So, you know, kudos to you guys for all the hard work and planning that you've been doing. I know this is a big campaign for the firm. I'm going to jump over and go to Maria back for a second. And I know you were going to talk a little bit about this earlier, Maria, with the transition of work from home. You were going to talk a little bit, I think, about Microsoft Teams and how you're keeping your collaboration between your staff tight, and how you are finding one system to be better than the other. What's been your preference and what's been your experience?
Well, I will say, hands down, Microsoft Teams has been the biggest benefit to us. You know, we've had some, I would say, hesitation historically around work from home in general. And I think part of that is you lose a lot of the, you know, I can just walk down the hall and talk to this person or ask this person a question. And it's just a new unfamiliar way of working for a lot of folks. And one way that we've really kind of avoided losing that is by using Microsoft Teams. And what we've done historically is we've had monthly staff meetings where our general counsel hosts a meeting for our entire department, attorneys, paralegals, staff, and we talk about what's going on in the department, in the company, what we've been working on, big projects. And we have, since COVID-19 forced us to work from home, we've started doing that on a weekly basis, and now we're doing that by teams. And so it's a way to really keep folks interacting and connected, and understanding that even though we're not all in the same space, we are all still working, and we're all still working on, you know, collaborative projects. So that's at a larger scale, department-wide. We've also had folks who are meeting through Microsoft Teams again on a smaller scale. So we have, you know, commercial attorneys that tend to work together on certain projects. We have other attorneys who have kind of their team that they work with, and so they've been conducting their own meetings to make sure that they're all staying connected and on the same page as well. So hands down, Microsoft Teams has been very, very helpful to us. And interestingly enough, we literally probably the week before we all started working from home, just rolled out Microsoft Teams to the law department. So it's really been baptism
for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's been baptism by fire, honestly, but I think so far it's going pretty well. Folks are getting used to it, and I actually think that's not, I don't want to call it a good thing, but you know, folks in the legal field sometimes can be a little hesitant to adopt new technology, and so I think needing it has been a good thing when it comes to adoption. for sure.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'll share with the group and with the attendees that we've been a virtual company now for almost 20 years. And when we pivoted the next day to work from home, our staff came in and said, well, we're working the way we always do. We use Teams, we collaborate, we're a virtual company, and our processes didn't have to change. But it's amazing how the businesses are picking up the same workflow and the same products. And I will say we've heard a little bit that Teams, maybe the audio quality has been a little choppy with the load, but overall, it really is making a big difference to bring people closer together. Is other people on the panel that we have here today using Teams? Any other businesses on Teams platform?
We are as well, Chuck, at Potter Anderson. It's
Potter's
included in
Teams.
our EA. Yeah, so since it's included in our Microsoft agreement, there's no additional charge for it. So we had it deployed to the IT department and to our management team first, and we've been using it for several months. And we weren't going to deploy Teams, to be quite honest with you, but because we were going to do a new phone system project, Cisco Call Manager, and integrate WebEx and Jabber with all of that. So I didn't want to confuse people. But in light of what's happened here with the COVID-19, we did decide to deploy Teams to everybody. Fortunately, it was a packaged app. It got deployed. It's out there, and people are using it. So it seems to work very well. There is some audio quality issues with it. I think it's ramped up, but I think all of the providers have experienced some sort of audio or video quality at this point. At least every call that I've been on has. So
the internet as a whole, I mean, it's everybody's streaming. The children are home from school using the bandwidth. It's crazy.
Right. I mean, between that and Netflix, there's not much you can do at this point, right?
Just don't chop my Ozark off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Lawrence, were you going to say, is Sherman using Teams as well?
Yeah, we use Microsoft Teams, and as you remember, Chuck, I'm not from the legal services vertical, so I'm kind of newish now to all things legal. So I've been using Teams for many years. The latest version of Teams is a dramatic step forward, and I do think it's custom made for how lawyers work, and I think the benefits of co-editing and seamless travel and integration into OneDrive can make can be a game changer. It all hinges on how you implement it and dealing with the softer issues. And again, being forced to work remotely is not to be wasted, because you can drive through some innovation. I think quite frankly we've seen a decade's worth of innovation in 4 weeks in some places. So I do think Teams is a good solution.
Sounds good. I'm going to ask my friend Reese to put on his crystal ball hat, because Reese is unique. He's a legal operations director, but Reese, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you have a technology consulting background, and you've been on the other side of the fence, as we might say, or the dark side. Looking forward in the world that we're in, what do you see with COVID-19, with this crisis? How do you see it transforming the legal ecosystem? Is this going to become the new norm for us? Do you think some things will never go back to the way they were?
Yeah, boy, it's interesting hearing all the different perspectives, and I agree. I feel like we, in some regards, launched ahead multiple years in a matter of weeks here. I do think there's a long-term impact. I think there's human impact. I think there's way of working impact. I think there's technology impact. I'll start with the human. As we've all kind of touched on, or many of us have touched on, a lot of industries have been reluctant to work from home. Certainly the consulting industry is used to working wherever there's a corner, but businesses, especially businesses like Campbell's that have been around for 150 years, typically aren't that adept to adopting things like this. We saw that transition overnight, and we saw people who would have been really reluctant to be on a video call, a video happy hour, a video global town hall meeting, being forced to adopt it immediately. And with the balance of having a job, they were happy and eager to do it because they saw friends that were not in as good a position with what's going on. So it's certainly, and people have, I would reach out, the first week I was reaching out to people at various levels throughout the organization on Skype and Teams, and getting them used to video, and some of the people that I knew might be have some aversion to it. And by the time the second call happened, they were using it with their teams, they were used to it. So we really saw progression, I think from a human perspective, fairly quickly. I also think people are going to be more open to modifying their ways of working. They're seeing that this does work, and we really haven't had any balls dropped. Some of the things that people worry about just aren't coming to fruition. I think there will be technology implications, and I think the three come together. So, if we look at a corporate contracts team, I think they're going to be focused on maybe being a little more proactive in updating their standard templates and their contract language, because we're seeing issues with coronavirus in our contracts. And I don't think it will end with pandemics. I think we'll go back and do lessons learned, but they'll really be focused on, all right, let's really look at our global risk assessments and think about what other things could happen, how quickly, if they do happen, will they happen, and what do we need to be prepared. So contracts, we'll look at our contract templates. We will likely update. We're actually doing a risk assessment, and we've decided to continue to do our annual risk assessment remotely. We're looking at how do we modify that risk assessment quickly to incorporate additional risks that maybe we wouldn't have thought about before. The labor and employment teams will certainly be focused on, we've had to update our policies and procedures quickly. We'll be looking at how we're going to manage those going forward. Even our government affairs team, we have, look at a company like Campbell's, right? I mean, our CEO is on a video with us every Monday, literally saying to the whole company, hey, we really do all feel, I hear it in all of my communications, we feel an obligation to continue to put food on America's table. How do we continue to do that? And there's huge ramifications from a government affairs perspective. I mean, that team has really flown into high gear to deal with the federal, state, and local authorities and making sure that not just us, but the ecosystem that we work with continue to support us. And there are some technology systems that I've been pushing the company to be more open to, like contract management tools that are utilizing artificial intelligence. There's government affairs tools that marry content with systems. So you can subscribe to get not just the feed of the changes to the regs at various levels across the company, across the country, across the globe, but the vendor provides summaries of they break it down into relevance questions. Does this rule apply to you? Easy to answer relevance questions. Lists of things you can implement and to become compliant with the rule, and they package those things in software. So there's a lot of good things going on in the legal industry. I do think as we look at, everybody's in crisis mode today, so we're implementing the tools and making these tweaks that are necessary to keep the lights on. But as the legal industry is, as we all know, fairly slow to adopt some of these things. But I think the lesson learned conversations people will be more open to, all right, even if it's not a conscious verbal conversation, hey, what do I need to do to make sure we're better prepared next time? So just some of my thoughts.
They're great. Great feedback, Reese. Thank you for diving in and getting a little deep in that for us. I want to watch the time. I want to make sure we leave enough time for questions. There's a few more questions I wanted to ask the group. John, I'm going to bundle two questions together that I was going to ask you. One of them is, with the choices you're having to make for remote workers, security becomes a concern. Are you guys factoring that in to get new products to market for remote access and work from home? And also, when it comes to these work from home employees, are you providing a higher level or a white glove level of support? What if an attorney typically had a problem with his or her home internet access? Do you go a little bit further than you did as well when you're helping a user these days?
Yeah, I'll address the security question first. Fortunately, on the security side, we already have some good processes in place. For new projects, it's part of our project template. It's checkboxes, it's our security questionnaire. We have all the security questions for anything new. So that's a good part of it. The other component is our change management process, which we have in place. So any changes that are coming into play always have that security component included in there with our change management process.
Great.
We're working towards our ISO certification. See, these are all just kind of standard operating procedures that we follow in that respect. From a support perspective, it's a law firm. We're always white glove. It really hasn't changed, to be quite honest with you. I see Adeline smiling over there. It doesn't change. This is what we do.
Lawrence had a little bit of corporate whiplash when he came into a law firm. We do what for these people? Right, incorporation. Right. Different.
I couldn't possibly come in. No.
Yeah, so it's go ahead,
definitely relax. We definitely relax that line between what the help desk will do for somebody versus on their home equipment. And not only did we relax that line a little, we have our help desk person's truck loaded with cables and monitors and everything that you can think of. And when somebody runs into a problem, he'll go and deliver it to their steps. And then he'll get on the iPhone with them and he'll show them, plug this here, plug this there. So we really have relaxed where the line is and doing what we can to make sure everybody has the equipment that they need to get their job done.
That's great.
And we've gotten a little similar. We built a virtual geek squad. So all the people that were doing desktop support have been repurposed, and they reached out to everyone in the company saying, we don't normally do this, but if you have problems, and we've fixed all kinds of problems. Usually, it's the case of teenagers using Fortnite. So if you've got four teenagers streaming and playing Fortnite, and that eats all your bandwidth. So we have provoked some interesting conversations.
You could empower that teenager that's doing all your cereal to do some support for attorneys.
Yes, so we've given the ammunition to the parents to have frank conversations with teenagers and their internet usage.
That's great. That's wonderful. Adeline, let me ask you, in an operations role, something that we took very seriously at Adaptive Solutions, and I wanted to see what you're doing, something similar. Has Kaplan Stewart provided additional flexibility to people to work from home? You know, you have people that have childcare issues that weren't there before. You have homeschooling duties that you're handling. Have you guys provided a little more flexibility in the work-life balance?
Absolutely. So Kaplan, we've always been very stringent with the support staff, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Now the support staff is 7 days a week based on the 35 hours or 40 hours, depending upon what their roles are, as to when they're available. We have people that take 3-hour breaks in the middle of the day so that they can homeschool their children or be on their Zoom meetings with their school teachers. We have people working earlier, people working later, and we're obviously complying with all of the law, the wage and hourly laws, by having them clock in and out, and they do have to account for what their availability is. We're also requiring 1 day a week, depending upon how many PTO hours they have accrued. They either have to take off some amount of hours or a full day just to give them time to take care of themselves and to take care of their families and take care of their houses. And that's worked out well. And it makes the other members in that group accountable to each other because they're covering for people that aren't there on a particular day.
That's great. Maria, at your company, I know Teams has become crucial for you. Are you guys doing anything social? I mean, do you have social happy hours, things to make it a little more fun and engaging for the staff?
It's actually interesting you asked that because I'm hosting our very first department happy hour this afternoon. So, you know, I've been hearing more and more of this, and I've actually had some of the same experiences with friends of mine. And I thought, you know, when we're in the office, we like to celebrate birthdays and that kind of thing. So we'll have cake or treats, and it's just a way to get everyone together in a more relaxed atmosphere for even a half an hour. And we have quite a few birthdays that we're missing during this time that we're out. So I thought, what better way to get together than do a virtual happy hour? So we're actually trying that this afternoon. We'll see how it goes, but I expect it to go well. You know, and you mentioned Microsoft Teams. The other thing I'm seeing on there, which has been interesting, and it's been an opportunity for us to not only connect with folks within our department, but, you know, folks within the whole corporate office, and oftentimes people that we have never even spoken to because we have multiple floors. And what I'm seeing is there are people who are going on there and, you know, sharing recipes for what they're going to make for dinner, sharing photos of their pets as their coworkers now. And, you know, we had an example where our CEO got on and asked, you know, for recommendations about how folks are adjusting to work from home and how they switch off, which is more difficult to do when you work from home. So
Absolutely.
we've had a lot of more social interaction between a lot more people than we typically would have within a department or within the corporate office in general. So that's been, I think, a positive for sure.
It sounds like a great idea. You got to keep it a little fun. I've heard some great stories from people that have gotten creative. Reese, let me ask you, as we get close to wrapping up and doing some quick Q&A with the attendees, how about cabin fever? People are starting to think about, when I get out of lockdown, when I can get on vacation. Are you guys starting to think about how to deal with that deluge of PTO requests, and how do you plan for that in an environment like a Campbell's?
Yeah, we are definitely having those conversations and worried about it. We were just talking with the coronavirus task force yesterday. The current assumption is that Campbell's will roll back slowly. We rolled out slowly, similar to what others had talked about on the call. We did different offices to test our infrastructure and technology. Different offices worked from home, and we kind of ramped up into that. We will likely do the same thing and transition back somewhat slowly, both from a health and safety perspective, but also a technology perspective. So I think that will slow it a bit, but not completely. I'm also kind of hoping that people's reluctance to immediately travel will maybe have impact. What we are going to do is handle it similar to the way we handle holidays and holiday schedule. Each manager does have within the legal department, they put together a holiday schedule to manage who will be out on what days to make sure we have coverage. And we will likely put a similar kind of schedule in place and tie it to that holiday schedule. By tying it to something that people are already used to, I also hope that it takes any of the personal change kind of, don't tell me when I can't take vacation out of it, and it becomes, oh yeah, we need to manage to this.
That makes perfect sense. Lawrence and Adeline, I think you both may have told me in passing that there was some hardware procurement and dropping out of things like printers, monitors, scanners, headsets. Did you guys wrestle with that in the beginning? Was it easy to do if you acted early on? And if you had a great experience with a vendor, would you want to give a shout out to a hardware provider or somebody that really helped the firm?
I thought it was very easy to do. I used Brother for the printers, and I deployed a lot of Brother direct from Brother, and they shipped them to the admin's houses with toners. Anybody, as I said, that didn't have computers, we gave them firm laptops. I have the help truck all loaded up so that if somebody needs cables, they get delivered, and it's just worked out really well. The one thing that I think was imperative is we tried to make sure that anybody who never worked at home before had the same versions of all the software for scanning, the same printers, the same toner, just to relieve, because we have a very limited help desk, just to relieve the pressure on the help desk so that they knew when I call this admin, they have this printer. When I call this person, they have this scanner. So we tried to make it as consistent as possible.
And Lawrence, I think you had the luxury of having a pool of laptops available, as I recall, right? That helped you guys out a lot.
Yeah, I could lie to you and say that we had a pool of laptops specifically in preparation for this, but that would be a complete, utter, total fabrication and lie. No, we were preparing for a computer virus. So ironically, it was a different kind, but the system worked the same way. But in terms of other equipment we sent out, there was two questions. One, any shout outs? I think so. If it's CDW in particular are very useful in the UK and the US, and HP. And were there any problems? Were there any problems? No, I don't think there was any problems. And I think the question is why? And I think it's because people are amazing. The vast majority of people and human beings are just adapted to do what's necessary, whether it's a vendor or whether in the UK, when there was a request for people to volunteer to go and help their national health system, the NHS, 750,000 people volunteered almost overnight. So, we have seen some bad behaviour from others, and our virus attacks have spiked, which is disappointing. But the vast majority of people, including the vendors that we work with, have just stood up and done what's right.
It's very refreshing to hear that we're at the end of the day we're legal technology people, but we're all human beings, which is great. I'm going to ask the audience for the attendees. We're keeping the lines muted. I did see 1 or 2 questions come in. If you guys have any questions you'd like to throw out there for the last 5 minutes or so, I'd be happy to ask them to the panel. And while we're waiting for those to come in, the takeaway question that I had is, you know, for all the panelists, what's the one thing you would suggest that we all do right now to strengthen our business and to be ready for the next time? I mean, what's your biggest takeaway? And we'll go in the same order we started. We'll start with Adeline.
So from here on out, I'm going to have quarterly days where everybody's going to have to work at home by department, just to make sure that you don't lose what you've learned on how to work remotely.
I love it. John, how about you? Any takeaways?
One thing we've done is, it's part of our business continuity planning, is pre-staging our communications as well. One thing we did with this is using KnowBe4 was to get those communications pre-staged. I think that's been a huge advantage for us. It's kind of go in, select it, and get your message out to people as quickly as possible. Communication plans are critical in this type of a scenario. And I think that's the one thing we learned as a firm is an area for improvement. And I think we've already adopted that. I go back to that instructions folder. And one of the things we did was we put together a quote unquote business continuity binder. And we've actually deployed that to everybody's laptops on their desktop. It has important communication information there, contact information for people. And it's been very, very helpful and has been referenced by several people along the way.
That's really good. Lawrence, how about you guys at Sherman?
I think never waste a good crisis. So the door of opportunity is open now and we need to walk through it. So change is not something that humans like to do. That's changed in the last 4 weeks. So don't lose the momentum and keep driving the innovation agenda, because now we can make some strides to make things clearly more efficient, because people are seeing that that can be so.
Very strong words. Maria, what's your thoughts?
I think one of the most important things is that we're keeping track of lessons learned along the way, rather than waiting until after we're all back to work and then looking back to see what we learned, because oftentimes we'll forget what we've learned. So keeping track of what those lessons are and then communicating those within your group. So here's what we dealt with, and here's how we are going to learn from it going forward. So I think that's what I'm taking away from it.
Document, communication, planning. And Rhys, how about yourself?
Yeah, similar to what others have said, I really want to focus on a playbook and documenting everything we've learned, and to make sure we stay prepared for next time. I love some of the ideas that came up, and having everybody work from home once quarterly was a really good idea, for instance.
I liked it too. Always count on you, Adeline, for a creative idea. I do have a couple of questions that came in from the chat window, and the chat window is so small, but I will try and ask a couple of them. So one person asked, for the day and night support, how are you handling IT support for people working around different hours and in some circumstances around the globe, right?
Well, for Sherman, we're 24/7. So we have people who work shifts. So there's always someone available to answer any questions.
Got it. So shifting that, making that work.
From our perspective here, we already have a process in place. Our help desk is staffed 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's the majority of our calls, and we have an assigned person on a weekly basis that handles anything that comes in after hours. Fortunately, being a smaller firm, our call volume is light after hours. So so far it's worked pretty well. And it's been the whole team's just kind of pitched in here. They've done a great job on the IT side of the house to answer those requests when they come in as well.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we have an on-site person that's 9 to 6 each day, and then we have a consultant who does nights and weekends. So we have coverage 24/7.
It's legal. We're never off duty, right? We're around the clock.
Right.
White glove.
Well, this has been wonderful. We're right at the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I want to thank all of you for giving us some of your time today and sharing your feedback. This legal community means the world to all of us. It's a family, is how we look at it. And I hope we gave some useful information to others. And I'll say it again, if anybody has a question they'd like to socialize, please send it to me at Adaptive Solutions. My email address is cdavis@adaptivesolutions.com. Thank you, Adeline, Rhys, Lawrence, John, Maria. It means the world for us for you taking some time to volunteer today, and we appreciate it. And I will get a message out for the recording for this. So everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank you.
Chuck.
Bye all.
You're welcome, Chuck.
Here now. Bye-bye.
Bye.